Welcome to Motivational Humanity. You are not alone.
You know what's hard? It's not standing up to aggressive people. It's staying yourself while you do it. I've learned that the real battle isn't about volume or words. It's about power, emotional power. And the person who stays grounded always wins. Because you don't rise to their chaos, you anchor in your calm. So today, I want to give you tools, not for fighting back, but for making aggressive people realize and feel the weight of their behavior. Let's talk about the kind of power that doesn't shout, it radiates. Silence is something most of us underestimate until we experience how powerful it really is. When someone is being aggressive toward you, raising their voice, interrupting you, or using that sharp, cutting tone that instantly tightens your chest, your first instinct is to defend yourself, to explain, to match their energy just so they understand how wrong they are. But here's the hard truth: when you react, you give away your power. Silence, on the other hand, is a force. It's not weakness, it's control. It's emotional mastery. Imagine this: someone's coming at you with hostility, waiting for you to bite back, ready to twist your words. But instead of rising to it, you take a slow breath, you hold eye contact, and you say nothing. The air shifts. You can almost feel them stumble emotionally, like they don't know what to do with the space you just created. Because aggressive people feed on reaction. They need it to keep the fire burning. When you don't give them that energy, they lose their fuel. Silence says, I won't meet you in the chaos. I choose peace over performance. And here's what's beautiful about that. Silence doesn't just calm the moment, it exposes it. It shows the other person how out of line they are without you ever having to explain. It's like holding up a mirror to their behavior. They start to see how small, how unnecessary, how loud they've become. In my own life, I've learned that silence is not about shutting down, it's about standing tall. It's about saying, I'm not afraid of your words. I just won't waste mine here. And that kind of composure, that pause between reaction and response, is where your real power lies. Because the truth is, you can't calm a storm by shouting over it. You calm it by refusing to join it. And when you stay silent, not cold, not dismissive, just grounded, you make aggressive people face the uncomfortable sound of their own noise. That's when realization begins. That's when they feel sorry. Not because you punished them, but because in your silence, they finally hear themselves. Let's talk about curiosity. The kind of curiosity that can completely disarm someone who's being aggressive. Most of the time, aggressive people thrive on control. They want to dominate the conversation, intimidate you, and make you feel small so that they can feel bigger. They expect you to react, to argue, to get defensive. And here's the thing, they often aren't even fully aware of how their words affect others. That's where the power of a simple question comes in. The phrase, "Help me understand," is deceptively gentle, but it's also revolutionary. Next time someone lashes out, instead of snapping back or trying to outshout them, you can say, "Help me understand what made you say that." Notice what happens in that moment. You've taken the aggression, and instead of meeting it with anger, you've invited the person to pause and explain themselves. It's almost like holding up a mirror. Suddenly, they have to slow down. They have to articulate their reasoning. And many times, they start hearing the harshness of their own words in a way they never did before. This is such a subtle form of power because it doesn't humiliate them. You're not attacking, you're not calling them out directly. You're simply asking for clarity, but that clarity forces awareness, and awareness often leads to regret. Because once they see their own words and tone in the light of your calm curiosity, they feel the weight of their behavior. I've used this approach in my life countless times. I remember a colleague who would always speak over me in meetings, always trying to assert control. One day, instead of snapping back, I said, "Help me understand why you feel the need to interrupt me just now." There was a pause, a long, uncomfortable pause. And then suddenly, the energy in the room shifted. The room went quiet, and my colleague, for the first time, actually listened to themselves. Curiosity doesn't just diffuse aggression. It redirects it. It invites dialogue rather than conflict. It shows the other person that you're not a target, you're a human being deserving of respect. And in that pause, In that simple invitation to explain, they often realize just how wrong or harsh they've been. So remember, the next time someone is aggressive, don't respond with anger. Respond with curiosity. Ask them to help you understand. It's quiet, it's dignified, and it's one of the most powerful ways to make aggressive people pause, reflect, and eventually feel a sense of regret. And that, my friends, is a victory in itself. Boundaries. They're something most of us talk about, but few of us practice with true courage, especially when faced with someone who's aggressive or disrespectful. Setting a boundary doesn't mean you're being mean. It doesn't mean you're overreacting. It simply means you value yourself enough to refuse mistreatment. And saying, "I'm not okay with that tone," is one of the most direct, yet gentle, ways to claim that value. Here's the truth: many of us have been conditioned to avoid discomfort. We're told to be polite, to keep the peace, to swallow our feelings so others won't be upset. But that kind of self-sacrifice doesn't earn respect. It teaches people that they can push you around without consequence. When you calmly, firmly say, "I'm not okay with being spoken to like that," something remarkable happens. You don't raise your voice, you don't attack, you don't try to prove a point. You simply state a truth about yourself: "I will not tolerate disrespect." And that simple truth changes the dynamics of the interaction immediately. I remember a time in my life when someone close to me would consistently use sarcasm to belittle my ideas in meetings. I used to shrink, trying to laugh it off, thinking I had to keep the peace. But one day I stopped. I looked them in the eye and said, "I'm not okay with being spoken to like that. If you want to continue this conversation, we need to talk respectfully." The room went quiet. It wasn't an argument, it was a boundary. And in that quiet, the other person had no choice but to notice their behavior. Setting a boundary like this is not about shaming the other person. It's about teaching them. You're teaching them that your worth is non-negotiable. That respect is not optional when they're in your presence. And here's what's even more powerful. The more consistently you enforce these boundaries, the more aggressive people begin to respect them, or at least feel the weight of crossing them. Saying, "I'm not okay with that tone," is a declaration of self-worth. It's a refusal to be manipulated, to be belittled, to be diminished. It's standing tall while maintaining dignity. And in that act of quiet courage, aggressive people often feel something they weren't expecting: a pang of regret, a flicker of realization that they've crossed a line. Because boundaries are not walls, they're mirrors. They reflect back the behavior being offered to you. And when you consistently reflect aggression with calm, firm clarity, people are forced to confront the impact of their actions. And that, my friends, is how respect is earned and how self-respect is defended. Knowing when to step away is one of the most powerful tools you have in dealing with aggressive people. Most of us have been taught that walking away is a sign of weakness, or that we have to endure discomfort to be strong. But real strength, the kind that lasts, is knowing when to preserve your peace. When the conversation escalates, when voices are raised and emotions are running high, you don't have to stay. You don't have to engage in a battle that serves no one. Saying, "Let's pause this conversation until we can both be respectful," is not giving up. It's taking control. It's claiming your emotional space and refusing to allow someone else's aggression to dictate your state of mind. There is immense courage in saying, "I will not be a part of this toxicity. I will not allow my energy to be consumed by hostility." And when you step away, you send a clear, silent message: your dignity cannot be bargained away. I remember a situation in my own life where someone I worked closely with would escalate arguments over minor misunderstandings, turning small disagreements into verbal attacks. For a long time, I tried to reason, to debate, to defend myself in the heat of the moment. But all that did was fuel the fire. Then I realized that the real power wasn't in arguing, it was in pausing. The next time the aggression started, I calmly said, "Let's take a break and continue this conversation when we're both ready to speak respectfully." And I walked away. The effect was immediate. The other person was left in the echo of their own behavior. They couldn't manipulate or intimidate me anymore because I had removed myself from the environment that allowed them to thrive. I hadn't yelled, I hadn't shamed, I hadn't reacted. I had simply chosen peace over chaos. Walking away is not avoidance, it's strategy. It's a way of setting a clear boundary without escalating conflict. It's a way of protecting yourself emotionally, mentally, and even physically. And over time, aggressive people start to learn something crucial: their usual tactics don't work on you anymore. Their attempts to provoke you fall flat, and the responsibility for their behavior becomes theirs, not yours. When you pause, when you step away, you are showing the world and yourself that your worth is not negotiable. You're teaching people that respect is required, not optional. And in that teaching, aggressive people often feel something uncomfortable for the first time: accountability. They begin to understand that their aggression has consequences, and that your calm, deliberate choices have power far greater than their anger. Choosing to step away isn't just self-protection, it's leadership, it's courage. And it's one of the most effective ways to make aggressive people pause, reflect, and yes, feel a sense of regret for how they've acted. Acknowledging someone's feelings without surrendering your own boundaries is one of the most powerful tools you can use when facing aggression. Many people think that empathy means letting someone walk all over you, or that validating their emotions is somehow giving them permission to mistreat you. But real empathy is not about submission. It's about connection without compromise. When someone is aggressive, they're often operating out of fear, frustration, or insecurity. And the instinctive response might be to argue, to defend, to prove them wrong. But here's the truth: aggression rarely comes from a place of logic. It comes from a place of unmet needs and unresolved emotions. That's why one of the most disarming things you can say is, "I hear your frustration. Here's what I need instead." It's deceptively simple, but it's transformative. You're showing that you see their pain or anger, but you're not absorbing it. You're not letting it dictate how you respond. And you're making a clear statement about what is acceptable in your presence. I remember a moment in my life when someone close to me repeatedly lashed out during stressful situations. At first, I responded defensively, and it only made things worse. But one day I tried something different. I said, "I hear that you're upset. I understand that this is frustrating for you. But here's what I need from you: respect and calm as we talk this through." The room shifted. Immediately, the other person had to pause and process my words. They weren't used to being met with acknowledgement without capitulation. They were forced to confront not only their behavior, but also the impact it was having on me. That pause often leads to a moment of clarity, a recognition of their own harshness, their own aggression. And in that clarity, regret can quietly emerge. This approach is powerful because it blends strength with compassion. It shows that you are not afraid to stand up for yourself, and that you are not willing to let anger dictate your interactions. It turns the dynamic from confrontation into conversation, from aggression into accountability. You are teaching by example what healthy communication looks like. And here's the deeper truth: when you consistently respond this way, aggressive people begin to notice that their usual tactics no longer have the desired effect. They feel the weight of their words not because you punished them, but because you reflected back a standard of respect they failed to meet. They begin to realize that aggression only isolates them, and that calm, firm boundaries hold far more power than shouting ever could. So saying, "I hear your frustration. Here's what I need instead," is more than a sentence. It's a declaration of emotional leadership. It's the art of